Hello everyone and welcome to part 4 of our video series. Just as a recap, we did finish the outer shape of both boxes, then we went ahead and cut the hole for the speaker itself, added some fiberglass filler on the outside just to fill in all those voids, and did a lot of sanding with extreme prejudice. Once that was done, we went ahead and added our carpet, trimmed it up very nice, added some fiber stuffing, and then bolted on our speakers. And these turned out looking fantastic. They fit like a glove. So next on our list, let's go and remove the spare tire cover and get this out of the way, because we need to find a spot to mount our new amplifier. And the one we're going to be using is this Kenwood. It's actually really nice. It's simple for what we're going to be using, and it's actually incredibly small. Look at this. And the area I'm thinking about mounting it is right there in front of the foam insert, right in that little cavity area. I think it's going to be a nice clean fit. And I'm going to be using this cool diamond plate. I think it's going to give it a nice little touch. It looks beautiful, and it's really easy to work with. If I put it right here, it's almost the exact width I need. Look at that. And all I got to do is contour it to the little spare tire well. So I think it's going to turn out really awesome, so let's give it a shot. Now, since the top has a beautiful shine, we're going to go ahead and flip it over. We're going to do all our tracing and markings on the back. And I want to go ahead and measure it out. It should be a 24-inch plate, and I want to go ahead and mark it in the center at 12 inches. Now, you're going to see me use a pencil, but I will interchange between a marker and a pencil just to make it easier for me to see. And we're going to mark both the top and bottom of the plate. This is going to tell me where to hold the string, as well as my starting point. So I have paracord right here, but you can use regular string. And I'm going to use this to make a little half circle. And this method is really easy. All you have to do is tie the string around the marker, start at the 2 center points, keep tension on the string, and go ahead and go along the diamond plate. And it should come out looking beautiful. So we have one side done. Let's see if we can get the other. There we go. So now let's go ahead and grab some tape. This is painter's tape, but you can also use masking tape. And let's go ahead and flip it over to the shiny side. And we're going to be taping off the area that we're going to be cutting. The whole idea is when you tape off areas on the other side, it typically provides cleaner cuts as well as controls a little bit of that metal dust. So now we can go ahead and grab our jigsaw with our fine cutting blade, and all we have to do is just cut along the lines and take your time. There's no rush, just make sure it's nice and clean. Alright, that's so far we're off to a good start. Nice clean cuts, looks nice and smooth. So we always want to check fitment before we progress. So taking a look, so far this is fitting exactly the way I planned, so let's keep moving forward. And we don't need this tape, so let's go ahead and remove it for now. So now let's go ahead and grab our deburring tool and clean up all these edges. Now a deburring tool is really good because now we're going to remove any burrs or any sharp edges on this diamond plate. Now you're going to see me use this throughout the video anytime we cut or drill. I don't want to cut myself accidentally, and we always want to have a nice smooth surface to work with. Not only for safety, but just because it makes it look better. And I always like to check it just to make sure there's nothing left. Feels pretty smooth. I think we're safe to move on. Let's keep going. And moving back to the trunk, let's go ahead and remove our foam insert. So all we have to do is unscrew this spare tire holder bolt. And now this does have quite a few threads, so it may take a minute. And then go ahead and lift up on the foam insert, and it comes right out. So now let's go ahead and grab our diamond plate and check our fitment. Now the plan is to go ahead and bolt it right to that spare tire bracket. It already has some threaded holes, so I think it's going to work out perfectly. And then we'll mark out the center of the cavity, which happens to be the right threaded hole. That works out perfectly. And then we'll center the diamond plate with it, so that way we can trace out that spare tire bracket. And I'm just using a marker just to get a rough idea. And not too shabby. And then I'll bring it back and go ahead and square it off using a ruler. So now we can mark up the first hole we drilled. This is going to go in the center of the diamond plate, but it's going to match up with the right hole of the spare tire bracket. And then we'll grab our center punch and put a few divots right in the middle of our crosshair. This will keep the drill bit from dancing all over the diamond plate and give us a nice clean hole. Then we'll grab the stepper bit, let me focus the camera, and I want to mark it off at 9/30 seconds. This will give me a stopping point because I want to drill the hole to a 1/4 inch. That's just a hair above 6 millimeters. And of course we'll grab our drill, and let's see if I can line up with that little divot, and go ahead and start drilling. Now I want to go ahead and step this all the way down to a 1/4 inch, and look at that. Nice and smooth, and we'll take our deburring tool and go ahead and clean out that hole. And we're always going to flip it over and do both sides just to make sure there's no sharp edges left behind. And moving back to the trunk, let's go ahead and check the fitment again. I'm going to grab my 6mm bolt, and we're going to go ahead and bolt this down to see how it looks. So give us a second. We're going to tighten this all the way down. Oh man, that's looking really good so far. Now let me go and grab that foam insert, and it's going to kind of look like that. I think this vision's starting to come to light, so let's keep going. So let me zoom in a little bit. So we have this hole right in the middle right here. I think this is a good spot we can use for an alignment pin. I think that might work out really good. So what I can use is, I can use a 4mm bolt and a lock nut, and that might actually fit perfectly right there. Look at that. So we could drill another hole in that diamond plate for this alignment or guide pin. So let me go ahead and mark that out. Same thing we did earlier. Use our center punch just to create a few divots. That way our drill bit doesn't dance across the diamond plate. And then this time we'll grab a 11/64 drill bit. This is just a breadth above 4mm, so it should work out perfectly. And I'll just go ahead and drill that hole out, and we'll deburr that one as well. And of course, you know me, I always want to check the fitment as we move along. So I'll grab my 4mm screw and my lock nut, tighten it down with some hand tools, and then we'll move our way back to the trunk and check the fitment. So far the alignment guide works pretty good. Let's go ahead and put that 6mm bolt in. Tighten that down, look at that. So moving this left to right, this is looking really good. I think this is going to work out perfectly. So now this is where the foam insert comes into play. We're going to use this to trace out our cutting lines. So I'm going to set this right on top of the diamond plate, and if you look down the hole, look at that. That lines up with that 6mm hole we made earlier, or that 1/4 inch hole I should say. And that's going to line up perfectly when using our spare tire holder bolt. So using that same hole as a pivot point, I'm going to go ahead and rotate the foam around until I get even measurements on both sides with the edge of the diamond plate. And then I'm going to use a pencil just to go ahead and trace out all those edges. And I'll go over those same lines again just to make sure I can see them when I cut them later. And we're going to want to keep the metal in the middle, so I'm going to use a ruler and just go ahead and make a line right where it curves just to keep that one square area. And then I'll use the eraser just to make sure I don't make a rookie mistake and accidentally cut it. And the same process as earlier, I'm going to grab some tape and go ahead and lay it down on the shiny side to all the areas we're going to be cutting. Then I'll go ahead and flip it over, grab my utility knife, and just clean up all that excess tape. Just makes it easier on me. And then we'll grab our jigsaw and just follow the lines. And look at that. Nice, clean, smooth cuts. Very nice. Let me go and grab that foam insert because I'm kind of curious how it contours to it. And let me go and butt it up against it. Look at that. That is perfect. That's exactly what I'm looking for. That worked out very nicely. And moving back to the trunk once again, the area on the left right here, this part of the diamond plate, that's going to be perfect for where the grounding wire goes. So I want to go ahead and cut off that one area. So we'll go ahead and mark up that whole location. Grab our center punch, put a few divots in there at least. And then go ahead and grab a stepper bit, and we're probably going to cut it to about 5/8. So I'm going to mark right above that at 11/16. And then we'll grab our drill, and I'll go very slow to make sure I don't go too big of a hole. That doesn't look too bad. And then we'll grab our ruler and go ahead and mark out some straight edges at the 9 o'clock point and 12 o'clock point. This will create a nice clean radius in the area we're cutting off. So all you gotta do is tape it off, grab our jigsaw, and of course we're gonna use our fine blade and take your time, and then go ahead and deburr it so we have nice clean edges. Next, we did some measurements on the foam insert and the spare tire bracket, and something very interesting and very cool. This seam right here, that is the height of the spare tire bracket. So that actually is gonna work out really cool. So our goal is to take our diamond plate and insert it in the foam. And all I have to do is stop cutting right there. So that's going to be very easy. All I have to do is take our oscillating tool and just cut along the seam until you get that exact depth. Man, it is crazy how clean that oscillating tool just cuts through that foam. But I did have to grab a handsaw just to meet the depth requirement in this one little area here and on the other side. But it cuts very easily. Now, if everything went according to plan, this should slide right in and it should fit perfectly. So let's see how it looks. Come on. It's a little snug, which is good. And look at that. That pressed right in very nicely. It feels very firm. That lines up beautifully. Let me flip it over, check our hole. Look at that. Right there, dead center of that hole. That is beautiful. And since we're on a roll, let's go ahead and clean up these edges. I want to go ahead and cut it away so it flattens and contours a little bit better to our foam insert. This is just more of a preference. And of course, I always like to check our progress as we go along. So I'm going to check the fitment once again. So far, so good. Then I'll throw in our spare tire holder bolt. Tighten that down. Look at that. That looks beautiful. Let me bring it in so you can get a closer look at what I'm seeing. And so far, that's looking really good. It's contouring beautifully. It's got that beautiful curve there. However, the next area we got to address is right here. As you see, it's a little flimsy at the edge. So if we put any weight on it, it's going to start bowing downward. So let's go ahead and address that. So we have our amplifier, and we're probably going to mount it right there in the center. And it does bow it down even though it's lightweight, which is no big deal because we have these really cool aluminum tubes right here. These are really good, lightweight, and easy to work with. And this is actually leftover material from a previous video. When we did the Mustang license plate mount, the one where we didn't have to drill into the bumper, we made a custom-made mount using these same tubes, and it looked awesome and turned out great. So now moving back on, all we have to do is measure the height of the diamond plate, and using our ruler, we're right around the 48mm mark, which is very manageable. So I'll take my pencil and go ahead and mark it out. And I just went and use my drill just to mark all the way around it, just out of boredom. It looks pretty good. And then we'll grab that same tube cutter from the previous video. Go ahead and line it up with our line that we made. Tighten it up. And just start turning. And then go ahead and tighten up that tube cutter every time you make a turn. And just work it back and forth. And look at that. Nice little cutting edge. That's looking really clean. I love it. And all we got to do is just keep going back and forth until it cuts all the way through. And after a few minutes of cutting, we were able to cut all the way through nice and cleanly. And let me try not to drop everything. And we have a little bit of a sharp edge, no big deal. I'm going to grab some 220 sandpaper and just sand along it till it's nice and smooth. And now we can go ahead and verify that we got the right length. Let me go ahead and zoom in. Look at that. I think we're right at 48. I think it looks pretty good. And with the power editing, there's another one. So we have a nice set of 2 legs. And next we need to add a little bit of thread to these tubes. So I'm going to take a paper towel, put it around the tube, and put it in the vise just so I don't scratch it up. And the whole idea is I want to add a little bit of threading in this tube just so I can put a bolt through it. So I have some tap magic, and I always like to lubricate not only the tube, but the tap itself. So I'm going to put a little bit on there as well. You can never have too much lubricant. And then go ahead and start little by little, start threading it down the tube. Anytime you feel resistance, start backing out. And we're going to repeat these steps until we get about 1 inch of thread depth. So we went ahead and bottomed out the tap, so this one's going to be done. And let me bring it in so you can see what we got. Look at that. Nice clean threads. That looks great. I think this turned out very nicely. Let's go ahead and do the second one as well. And it looks like these threads turn out nicely as well. Very good. So we'll go ahead and bring it back over, and we're going to grab some alcohol and go ahead and clean these out. We just want to remove all that tap magic that was left behind. That way it doesn't interfere with the thread locker we're going to be using later. So just use a microfiber cloth and some alcohol and clean them right up. So just to lay out the plan, we're going to put the amplifier right in the center, or at least as much as possible. And then I'm going to put the legs probably around the edges around right here. I think that's going to be a good spot. So let me go ahead and mark these out. These are just rough for now until I flip it over. And then the other side, now that I have an idea where I want it, I want to measure from the center to where they should be, but I want to make them even on both sides. So these are even measurements. And then we'll go ahead and put our little center punch divots in there. And then drill them out with our 1/4 inch stepper bit. And we'll get the second one in there. There we go. And then we'll go ahead and deburr both holes. Alright, we're almost done. So all we have to do is mount the amplifier. So I'm going to put it in the center and then square it off with the foam insert. So you can see I'm taking my ruler. That way I have even measurements on both sides. Then I'll take my carpenter's pencil and put little circles where the mounting holes are. And then once that's done, we'll center punch it and then take our 11/64 drill bit and drill the holes. So now we have all drilling complete. Let's grab some 6mm screws and some washers, and we can start installing these legs. So put the washer right on the screw, go through the diamond plate, add some thread locking compound. You always want to add thread locking compound in an area that could vibrate, so this is perfect for this area. And we'll go ahead and thread on our leg. It's got quite a few threads on there, so bear with me. Tighten it down, take our Phillips screwdriver, make it nice and snug. Beautiful. And just to make sure we don't hear any vibration, we're going to add some rubber caps to the feet. And all these do is press right on. These are really cheap and easy to come by. And I went ahead and grabbed a set of 2, and they fit perfectly right over. Look at that. So now, when we go ahead and set this in the trunk, metal against metal, you're not going to hear any vibrations. And I couldn't resist this last detail. We had some leftover door edge guard from a previous video. We actually installed this exact same stuff on the front floor mats because it made it look really good. So I'm doing the same thing here, not only to add a color offset, but it's also going to add a layer of protection because we're going to be running our wires and cables along this diamond plate, so it's less likely to cut into the insulation of the cables. So now we're ready to reinstall our diamond plate right inside our foam insert. Slides right in beautifully. It looks awesome. I can't believe how this turned out. This is better than I expected. And now we can go ahead and flip it over, grab our utility knife, and we got to cut away the trench for that ground cable. We won't be installing the ground cable in this video, but we need to cut away the trench for it. So all you have to do is just cut away a little square area, and I'm trying to do it best I can, and then just pull it away with my fingers. It doesn't have to be the cleanest area, but we just need to get enough room for a cable to get through. And we are almost done. So let's go ahead and install our alignment screw, which is going to be an M4. And I'm going to try to put that on a Phillips screwdriver and turn this thing upside down so I don't drop it. And it looks like I got it through, so now I'll grab my lock nut and go ahead and start threading that on. Very nice. And then grab a 7mm socket and just tighten it up till it's nice and snug. And then I'll realign the diamond plate and zoom it in so you can see what I see. Look at that. So far it looks pretty good. Everything is lined up very nicely. And since we got that same socket out, let's go ahead and install our amplifier as well. And these are also going to use M4s. It just happens to be the same size. So I'll use a magnet and a screwdriver and just go ahead and feed it through the hole. Very nice. And I'll keep doing this for all 4 holes. Get all my hardware together, flip it over, and we're going to add our washer first. and then go ahead and add our lock nuts and tighten all these down with our 7mm socket. And it looks like this turned out very nice and sturdy. And we'll bring it in one last time for a once over, and it looks like everything contoured beautifully. I love how this turned out, and it's actually even surprisingly lightweight. That's a nice little bonus. And now for our very last modification, we have our holder bolt, and it's going to be used to hold the diamond plate down to the spare tire bracket. So here's what we're going to do. Let's take an M6 nut, thread it right onto the rod. Then we'll take a flange nut and put that right behind it. And once we thread that on just a little bit, probably about an inch, then we'll insert the holder bolt right in the foam insert. And we're trying to feel it to see when it hits the diamond plate. And I'm kind of going back and forth until I get it right. So it looks like we got it on the second try. So I'm going to use a wrench just to go ahead and tighten up that locking nut against the flange nut. And it's going to hold it in place. And one last test to make sure it fits. Looks good. Let's go ahead and move to the trunk. So if everything goes according to plan, this should fit right in. Let me take the holder bolt out. And everything should line up. There we go. Very nice. Put the holder bolt back in there. And we'll go ahead and tighten this up. Again, 50 threads later. Nice and snug. And now let's do a vibration check. Look at that. That is beautiful. There is nothing moving. This is nice and sturdy. I love how this is turning out. And now let me go ahead and bring the camera in. That way you can see what I see. And look at that. Everything contours beautifully. Everything is shaped very nicely. I even love that blue trim. That adds a nice little offset. It's always about these little details. It looks great. And of course I got to put my air compressor back. I don't want to forget that thing. And lastly, we'll put in the spare tire cover. There shouldn't be any issues there. We didn't mess with the height, so there shouldn't be any gaps or anything. So yep, everything looks perfect. So I'm going to do one last peek at it because it turned out beautiful. It turned out better than I expected. It looks awesome. So all we have to do next is wire everything up, and we're going to tackle all that in the next video.